Hello. Dispatching to you live from America amidst a global pandemic. How exciting. My name is Jessie and I'm a filmmaker from Cape Town, currently based at Stanford University, where I'm studying an MFA in documentary filmmaking. What this essentially means is that I'm becoming the most qualified in the least useful trade out there. Anyway, when I first started studying filmmaking, documentary really wasn't on my radar. I spent my first undergrad years gorging myself on indie European art house films that belong more in the world of fiction than non-fiction. I hated the idea of talking head interviews, and I fell asleep while watching informational docs on TV. However, about halfway through my degree, a mentor of mine began to introduce me to a range of documentaries that I'd never been exposed to. Films that, in my opinion, transcend clear or neat genre binaries. For me, these films were a breath of fresh air and presented a type of new opportunity for reframing documentary as a genre not intrinsically bound to some arbitrary duty to portray reality as an objective projection, but rather played with form in order to reflect a reality that is subjective, internal, poetic, and creative. Films like Elena by Petra Costa, The Act of Killing by Joshua Oppenheimer, News from Home by Chantal Ackerman, and many more. Anyway, the point of all of this is that my interest in documentary began as an exploration of form, of finding a way to make documentaries whose conventions reflect the stories they tell. Every new film presents a new kind of exciting challenge to think about the story being told and to figure out a unique approach that makes sense. In order to make these ideas more concrete, I thought I could lead you through some examples of some projects I've worked on, and I'm still currently working on. So one of my first documentaries was a collaborative film called Umva that I made at UCT. The idea behind this project stemmed from conversations I'd been having with three of my friends involved in the Roads Must Fall movement, and a need to document and archive some of the personal feelings experienced during this time. We approached it by recording a conversation for about an hour, and from this hour-long conversation, I condensed it down to 12 minutes, and we used these 12 minutes of audio in order to collaboratively figure out a visual approach that spoke directly to the conversations we'd gathered. And from this, we decided to take a stylized, performative approach, as all three of them were also doing theatre and performance at the time. The next documentary I worked on is titled, Can I Please Go to the Bathroom? This was a project that looked at some of the key issues surrounding taboo topics like periods and access to sanitary products. Like Umva, this piece was also audio-driven. I gathered audio testimony from young girls in schools all over Cape Town, and I discovered that a key thread between the testimonies stemmed from the physical and psychological space of the girls' bathroom. And many of these recordings were also taken inside these bathrooms. So I decided to approach it through this visual lens by locating the film inside the physical space of the bathroom. A lot of the girls were also very into art and spoke a lot about their dreams and hopes, and I decided to use this and incorporate a small animation component within the film too. An ongoing documentary that I've been working on is a comedy, actually, set in an old age home in Cape Town, which I'm co-directing with my longtime collaborator, Chase. Here she is. I spent my high school years volunteering at the home and a long time researching the aesthetic approach. I felt that for this film, I really wanted to make the home itself, in other words, the space, the main character. So foregrounding the physical architecture and environment of the home was important. For this reason, together with our cinematographer, Greg Kotzer, we decided to use a locked-off approach with mostly wide shots using prime lenses.
Okay, all right, that's good. Hold it. Hold it. I want the eyes, so don't look at the sidru. Actually, look at the sidru, makes it more interesting. Now look through me, like I'm interrupting your prayers.
As I mentioned before in this dispatch, I'm currently at Stanford. So I thought it could be fun to throw in a bonus project of something I've made in the program. Last quarter, I co-directed a film titled The Gallery That Destroys All Shame, about a female-led sex ed group that meets in LA. During the class, participants are taught how to use a speculum to observe their cervixes for the first time, and are also invited to share personal and intimate stories surrounding their vulvas and vaginas. I co-directed this film with my amazing friend Aurora. Here she is. And we decided that it was important to honor the space of the workshop and the class. And so we made the decision to film the entire project within the class setting, never leaving the room. This was an important formal decision, as we realized that a key reason behind the intimacy of the class is due to its private and interior setting, which we wanted to reflect in the actual film. Here's a shot of us eating burgers after the shoot in LA for good measure. Anyway, these are a couple of examples of some of my projects and how I approached each film formally and aesthetically. I think a lot of documentary has a bad rep for being a kind of spray and pray medium where you just go out and shoot without much foresight or thought and figure it all out in the edit. But what these projects have taught me is that so much thought and deliberation goes into planning and conceptualizing from an aesthetic perspective too. This approach is undeniably hard, and every time I start a new film, I feel like I am at day one of film school all over again, trying to figure out if any of my ideas will work. Here are some examples of me trying to figure out my current project over this past week, which, as you can tell, is not going swimmingly. I pitched again, and I don't think that the approach is working. The short answer is some of your ideas will work and some won't. Many won't, probably. But that is also the beauty of documentary, that it is so open to chance and is inherently unpredictable. It's part of the challenge and one of the reasons why I love this form.